Hello everybody, Bradley here, and welcome into a brand new Civilization 6 tutorial-ish kind of video, where today we are talking all about the Machu Picchu. The Machu Picchu is one of the best wonders in the game, and it's also one of the only wonders that's completely undone by where it is on the tech tree in higher difficulties, which is not something we've really ever talked about. So far, it's only been wonders that have a good spot in the tech tree, so I'm excited to talk about one that doesn't quite fit in very well where it is on the tree, so that'll be fun to talk about. It's also the only world wonder that I've ever been to. This is a photo of me looking sexy as this. It really is the 7th sexiest Canadian Civ streamer. Here's me at the Machu Picchu in real life in Peru. It's absolutely magnificent. I would like, if you ever get the chance to A, go to Peru, but B, go to Machu Picchu, you just have to do it. It is one of the most incredible experiences in the world. Aside from that, though, aside from just how incredible this is, before we get started, just thank you so much to all the new subscribers. We are shooting up towards 6,000, which is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the channel members as well, and thank you to everyone who's hopped over to the Twitch channel recently. We've had a lot of people come over to the stream recently and say like, hey, hello, hi, I'm from YouTube. Same with the Discord server, so if you do want to check out the Discord server and join a really fun little community over there, that link is in the description and probably somewhere on the screen. The Twitch channel is also twitch.tv/VanBradley. That'll also probably be somewhere on the screen. I highly encourage you to check those out if you want more just awesome Civ content, you know? When I did my wonder tier rankings a while back, they do need to be redone a little bit. The game has added a few wonders since, and obviously opinions change as you go along and put more hours into the game, and as new updates kind of change the balance of things. But when we did our first kind of wonder tier ranking, I put the Machu Picchu right here in the S tier. I put it up there with Oracle and Pyramids as the only 3 S tier wonders in the game, and I think now I'd probably put it in the A tier. I'm not sure it's quite S tier now that I've had a little more time to kind of play around with it, but it's just such a spectacular wonder that's completely kind of undone on higher difficulties based on where it is in the tech tree. Like all wonders that we talk about, we've done the Oracle, we've done Kilwa. I can't remember if we've done any other ones, to be honest. There's so much more to building wonders than what the wonder actually does for you, and part of that is the cost of building it and kind of where it sits in the tech tree. The Machu Picchu sits over here at engineering, and the Machu Picchu is one of the wonders. There's a few of them the AI always prioritize. Every single game, the AI are gonna go for Machu Picchu. Same with the Temananki, usually the same for Oracle. There's a few wonders like that where they're just gonna gun for them no matter what. That means if you want the Machu Picchu on higher difficulties, you're gonna need to rush it. Now here's where we run into problems. First off, you need to have a perfect rush. You need to be able to get here very quickly, and having it be at engineering really sucks because you get down to engineering and you have to rush it. You can't dilly-dally. You have to go straight there. So you have to go through mining. You have to go up to masonry, which means you have to build a quarry to boost this most of the time. If you're building quarries, that means you're not chopping the stone, which kind of sucks. And the reason why you need to come up to masonry is you need to get ancient walls, because the boost for engineering is to build ancient walls, which you don't usually want to do that early because you have other things you need to build. You need to build units, you need to build districts, you need to build monuments and granaries and all these other things. So it is a little bit inconvenient to have to build, like, first off, it's inconvenient to have to build a quarry to get to this. Then it's usually pretty inconvenient, especially if you don't have limes yet, to actually build the walls to get down to here. Then you got to come through encampments and the wheel to get, or maybe it's just the wheel, I can't remember exactly, but either way, you have to come down here to get over to engineering. Once you get to engineering, you have to actually build the wonder on the mountain, which is obviously fine. All wonders need to be built, so that's not a problem. But while all this is happening on higher difficulties, like I play on Deity, right? So while all that is happening, you're not getting horses or archers or campuses or irrigation or holy sites. Like, you're missing out. You're not getting commercial hubs early. Like, you're missing out on so much good stuff that you usually need early on, that if you rush out to engineering and you do not get the Machu Picchu, it feels so terrible. It feels absolutely terrible to not get the Machu Picchu if you rush out here. And I just wanted to point that out because normally we talk about wonders where the place in the tech tree is fine. Something like Oracle, right? We talked about the Oracle or Killua, right? If you come down to mysticism and you don't get the Oracle, it still feels okay. You can still use the envoys, you know, the policy cards are fine, right? Maybe the preserve is cool, but it's like, it's not the worst thing ever to come down here and not get Oracle. It does delay your government a little bit, but that's not the worst. But coming all the way down, and you have to come here right away. You have to rush straight to engineering to get Machu Picchu and then not get it, feels absolutely positively awful. And so I just want to point out that it is a little bit different than some of the other wonders we have mentioned. With that being said, that is of course all difficulty dependent. Where I am playing on Deity, it's almost impossible to get the Machu Picchu in your games without taking it over. Even in this game, we had to like take Linguisa from another empire. We didn't build this ourselves. We had a moment on stream yesterday where someone actually suggested that the Machu Picchu would be really good, and I agreed, but I just didn't see a way to even possibly get it. So keep in mind that the Machu Picchu's difficulty to acquire is much more based on which difficulty you're playing than a lot of other wonders. If you are playing Prince or King, I think you're probably fine to kind of dilly-dally your way through the tech tree, right? You can probably come up, grab horses, grab archers, grab some of this other stuff you want, and then come down to the Machu Picchu. But I'm going to take a guess that if you're playing Emperor, Immortal, or Deity, if you don't rush straight to the Machu Picchu, you're probably going to get it, or probably not going to get it. And then if you rush it and don't get it, it feels pretty bad. If you can get it though, the Machu Picchu is absolutely incredible. So let's take a look at what it does for you and how to best utilize it. All right, so let's open our handy dandy Civilopedia, something you guys should all be familiar with by now. Very simple wonder, very nice little artwork here. Mountain tiles provide a standard adjacency bonus to commercial hub, theater square, and industrial zone districts in all cities in your empire. Must be built on a mountain tile that does not contain a volcano. So in terms of building it, I really like this build condition, because if you have mountains to build it, you have mountains to use it, right? So it's built in the way, it's kind of like the Petra in that way, where you still need a certain amount of mountains or a certain amount of desert to make it useful, other than the one tile you need to build it. But if you have mountains to build the Machu Picchu, you probably have at least some mountains to use it. Same with Petra. If you have desert to build the Petra, you probably have at least some desert to use it. So in terms of build conditions, one of the easiest wonders in the game to build, the opposite of the Great Zimbabwe, which needs like a commercial hub next to cattle or some. Like, this is like any mountain. Just pick a mountain in your empire. You can put the Machu Picchu there. And what's great about that is because the Machu Picchu doesn't need any tile requirements like hills or next to districts or anything like that, you can usually build it in your high production cities, right? So if you have one or two early cities with high production, you can build your Machu Picchu there to get it quicker. We talked about the Killua. The Killua is a wonder where you're usually building it in a lower production city early on, and the Machu Picchu is kind of the opposite. You can usually build it in a high production city, so just find the highest production city with a mountain tile that you can build the Machu Picchu on, because no matter where you build it, it affects all the other mountain tiles. So you can build it on this mountain tile over here and get the effect on these mountain tiles up here. So like I mentioned, it's really easy to build this in a high production city, which is very helpful. Keep in mind though, you cannot use, unless they changed it this April patch and I'm just unaware of it, you cannot use great engineers to build the Machu Picchu. You have to build it all on your own. If you're rushing straight here to get it anyway, you obviously haven't rushed up to industrial zones to even get the great engineer points to do that. But just if you are playing on a lower difficulty and you have great engineers lying around to build wonders, you cannot use the great engineers to build this. I don't take that away from the Machu Picchu just because it comes before great engineers become a thing, right? Like, you're getting it over here and the great engineer points don't even become a thing till apprenticeship. So I don't take it away from that, but just keep that in mind if you are building it later in the game or you're on a lower difficulty where you've already got industrial zones before you build this. Great engineers, not quite as helpful. What makes the Machu Picchu so amazing as a wonder, though, is it helps you get good districts almost everywhere in your empire. Good districts are very important early on, and I mention early on specifically because that's where the Machu Picchu comes in, right? So it's coming pretty early. If you are rushing straight to the Machu Picchu, you have not even unlocked commercial hubs. You have not unlocked campuses. You're probably just getting towards theater squares here, so you haven't even really unlocked your districts yet. So if you're rushing Machu Picchu, you usually get the Machu Picchu before you put your districts down, which allows you to get really good early districts. Obviously, early districts are important because getting the yields earlier helps you catch up to the AI. Obviously, yields are additive, so having higher yields early makes a big difference because they add to each other turn over turn. But getting the Machu Picchu early and getting good districts early is very, very nice because your earliest districts are the cheapest to build production-wise. The more of each district you build, the more expensive the next one gets. So if your first 3 campuses are pretty bad, by the time you build the 4th one that's good, it gets really expensive. The fact that you can have really good industrial zones, commercial hubs, and theater squares while they're the cheapest is absolutely incredible. So we're going to use a mod called Detailed Map Tax. Maybe that link will be in the description. If I remember, that link will be in the description. It's just a Steam mod called Detailed Map Tax. And we're going to use that to show you kind of how good this Machu Picchu can be. So we have some mountains over here. So for the we'll talk about 2 different sets here. Let's talk about the industrial zones and the theater squares and why this is really, really helpful. If you have industrial zones and theater squares, typically you have to build extra stuff to make them good. So normally to make a theater square good, you have to build a wonder to put it next to. You have to build an entertainment complex to put it next to. So if I just put a theater square in the middle of nowhere here, right? So if I just want to put a theater square down without building anything else, they can typically be pretty bad. So I'll have to build an entertainment complex to make it better. I'll have to build a government plaza to make it better. It's the same kind of thing with industrial zones, right? Like some industrial zones are fine. You'll have some good spots. But typically, if you want some good early industrial zones, you need to build an aqueduct to make them better, right? You have to build a dam to make them better. I think this won't let me, but it'll still say the +5. So you have to build extra stuff to make these early districts, the theater square and the industrial zones, really good. With Machu Picchu, they just become really good being placed next to mountains. So let's say I want a decent industrial zone early on. Boom, just put it next to some mountains and it's decent, right? Let's say I want a good theater square early on. Boom, just put it next to some mountains and it's decent. Now, obviously, you can stack these bonuses. We have a theater square here next to a mountain and next to a wonder. So if we take a look, this is a +3, 2 from the wonder, 1 from the mountain. So you can stack the bonus that way. But what it does is it gives you a lot. Same with this commercial hub. We're going to talk about commercial hubs in a second, right? But you can stack the bonus, 2 from the river, 2 from the mountains, and then 1 from 2 adjacent districts. So that's really helpful here. But what it does allow you to do is it allows you to at least get your district started without building extra stuff. This theater square here is the perfect example, right? Like I put it between the mountains. Now I don't have to build an entertainment complex here. I don't have to build a wonder here. I don't have to do anything here because the Machu Picchu's already allowing this theater square to be good. So this one's the perfect example. And just to reemphasize it one more time, that doesn't mean you still can't build these things later to make your districts even better. It's just allowing them to be good right off the bat. So if I put this industrial zone here, it's already a +3. I don't have to do anything. It's already good. And then when I can build the aqueduct later, I can still do that. I can still build the aqueduct. It still makes the industrial zone better, but I don't have to have it be bad first. It just starts out as good, and I can do the work to make it amazing. And so that's the kind of value the Machu Picchu is providing early on. Now, commercial hubs are a little bit trickier, and the reason why they're a little bit trickier is commercial hubs already have pretty easy adjacency bonuses. Most cities in your empire early on are going to be settled on a river for the fresh water, which means you already have a +2 commercial hub bonus boosted right in. So commercial hubs are kind of the least necessary districts to use with the Machu Picchu. To me, they're the third concern for sure, because I can already make good commercial hubs fairly easily. So I would focus your Machu Picchu on the industrial zones and the theater squares, which can be pretty bad for a long time until you get them to the point where they're good. Commercial hubs are already pretty good and pretty easy to make good, so I wouldn't worry about commercial hubs with Machu Picchu right off the bat. Like I mentioned, focus on your industrial zones and your theater squares to get the most effect out of the wonder. But what I will say is be on the lookout for things like this, right? You have a river next to a mountain here, so you can put your commercial hub right here. That's a +3, so you can still use the effect, right? It's just not the primary concern because I can already get decent commercial hubs elsewhere, but just be on the lookout, right? You have this one-off mountain here, and then you can do some districting maybe, right? You have this one-off mountain here. Ooh, I see a dam. That might be a good industrial zone. And then, hey, you know what? Just for and giggles, let's put a theater square right here because it's good next to the mountain. There's a little bit of adjacency here, so it's helping with the theater square in the industrial zone, but the commercial hub, just be on the lookout for the rivers and the mountain combinations. But I think to get the most effect out of the Machu Picchu, I would focus on your industrial zones and your theater squares early on. The last thing I want to mention about the Machu Picchu before we kind of leave you off here is that there is a prerequisite amount of mountains you're going to need, and that's going to change based on your game, based on your civ, based on everything. So before you build the Machu Picchu, it is a very good wonder and it provides a lot of value, but just keep in mind you do need more than just the one mountain to build it on. You need a few ranges like this to have it be super helpful and super useful, and the more mountains you have in your empire, probably the better Machu Picchu is going to be. Just don't build the Machu Picchu here if all you have are like these cities over here that don't have any mountains next to them. Much like the Petra, you need to have a certain amount of desert tiles to make it helpful. With the Petra, my amount is 5. With the Machu Picchu, there's no set amount of mountains. It also depends on how they're laid out. Mountains laid out like this, where you have 3 or 4 kind of right next to each other, are very nice. If it's just kind of sporadically one here and one there, it's hard to quantify how many you're going to need. But what I recommend is if you can use detailed map tax, that's really helpful. But if not, just like go around, look at your mountains and start pinning some things out. Start going like, hey, there's a strategic resource here. This is next to 2. So if I put this there, that'll be a +4. Sorry, it'll be a +3. Just kidding. Just kidding. Hey, look, it's me being I'm an idiot. Again. It's a +3, but you get the point, right? So go around, do some pinning, and then you can make that value judgment. Like with the amount of mountains I have, and with the districts I've just pinned out, is it worth it to get the Machu Picchu for X amount of production, culture, gold, whatever it is? So I can't really leave you off with a number because it's really hard to quantify the mountains, but just keep in mind you do need a certain amount of mountains in your empire to make it work. Don't just try and build the Machu Picchu every game because you love it. Make sure you have the mountains to actually be able to use it. For reference though, like this is a good amount of mountains. Like I didn't build this one, I captured this one, but like with this amount, like one kind of mountain range over here, one mountain range up here, like that's enough for me. I don't need a lot. What it provides in value for the theater squares and the industrial zones is so helpful that I don't need a lot of mountains to make it work. Just like 1 or 2 mountain ranges kind of scattered throughout the empire is perfect for me. And I think that's going to be it on the Machu Picchu. It is a very simple wonder with a very simple ability that is an A or S tier ability. Getting that extra boost to your industrial zones and theater squares specifically early on saves you so much production from having to build entertainment complexes and aqueducts and dams to get those extra boosts. So the value is definitely there. If you are playing on higher difficulties, you have to be extraordinarily careful with the rush on the tech tree. It is not in a good place on the tech tree to rush to. So if you are rushing out here, make sure you can get the Machu Picchu. Make sure you have the chops. Make sure you have Magnus. Make sure you have whatever you need in your game to do it. If you're playing on Prince or King, I think you're probably fine to dilly-dally a little bit along the way. Like come grab archers, grab some campuses, and then make your way down. But if you are rushing here, just be really, really careful. And I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had a lovely time listening to me ramble about another wonder in this game. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's very, very helpful with the algorithm. Also, our community is growing at a blistering pace, and I'm so happy to be able to welcome so many new faces in. So thank you for allowing that to happen as well. Don't forget to check the links in the description for Twitch, Discord, all that. Make sure you say thank you to Onvars in the comments below for editing this video. He is amazing. So everyone say thank you to Onvars. Otherwise, just thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. I wonder if I can just record my intro to the mixer and then I just never have to talk again. Let's try it. Let's see here. Hello everybody, Bradley here, and welcome to... Hello everybody, Bradley here, and welcome to a video about the Machu Picchu. Hello everybody, Bradley here, and welcome to a video about how to be the laziest YouTuber in the history of content. All right, we're deleting that. All right. With you guys, the Machu Picchu is all... the Machu Picchu is also... So, it's not also... It's not also... Honestly, completely undone by where it is in the tech tree. Fuck, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. That one was perfect. Oh, but I had the audio in the background. This is a mess, Anvars. I'm a mess. Who let me do YouTube? The Machu Picchu is what? Yes. One day when we do a blooper reel. One day when we do a blooper reel, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. There's gonna be a lot of things on it that I'm not gonna like.